working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good afternoon, I'm Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. And we're coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok, Thailand. Hello, Crystal.
Hello, Alma, and to all our viewers. Yes, I am Crystal Mapa of EBC Talent Bureau, and we're bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, President Marcos vows a swift probe into the Ateneo shooting incident. The incident happened on the eve of his first State of the Nation address, in which he is expected to present his plan for reviving the economy and tackling inflation. The Cambodian Health Ministry said a Nigerian man who went on the run after becoming Thailand's first monkeypox case was found in Phnom Penh and taken to hospital. Myanmar's junta has executed 4 prisoners, including a former lawmaker from Aung San Suu Kyi's party and a prominent activist. And it's official, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri is the next Senate President. First in our news, improving ties with the country's partners, both traditional and non-traditional, is among the priorities of President Bongbong Marcos Jr. in the next 6 years. Now, this was highlighted by the series of engagements between the chief executive, diplomats, and foreign government officials since his landslide win in the elections, leading to his first State of the Nation address today. Marcos has met with U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, Australia's Governor-General David Hurley, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, Chinese Vice President Wang Qishan, and many other ranking foreign dignitaries. And in those meetings, he talked about enhancing existing cooperations and further exploring areas of mutual interest. After his meeting with Sherman, the latter said Washington, D.C. sees a proactive agenda for cooperation between the U.S. and the Philippines, an agenda designed to directly improve the lives of the two nations' peoples, to build prosperity and improve security, and to seize the opportunities of the 21st century. The official said the U.S. would also work closely with the new administration to promote health security and help the country recover from the pandemic. But even as he sought closer relations with these major powers, President Marcos, way before his election win, has already vowed to pursue an independent foreign policy that is anchored on national interests. He said pro-Philippines have always said that. He was quoted as saying in February of this year by the Manila Times, "Well, it's very simple in my mind. I don't work for Washington, D.C. I don't work for Beijing, and I work for the Philippines." He said we can trust no one else when it comes to what is best for us. Past history has often proven that. He also said that solutions from outside divided us. None deepened our understanding, and they were always at our expense. Never forget, we are Filipinos, one nation, one republic, indivisible. We resisted and never failed to defeat foreign attempts to break up our country in my father's watch. His strongest critics have conceded that.
3 people were killed Sunday in a rare shooting at the Ateneo University in what appears to have been a targeted assassination. The incident happened as law students and their families arrived for a graduation ceremony that was to be attended by the Supreme Court Chief Justice. Police recovered 2 handguns and a silencer allegedly used by the suspect, who they identified as Chow Tiao Yumo and said had a long history of legal disputes with Rose Forigay, a former city mayor in the restive southern province of Basilan. Let's listen in.
Matagal lang po akong hihingi ng tulong sa gobyerno para imbestigahan yung droga sa amin sa Basilan. Kasi grabe po talaga ang kondisyon ng droga sa amin. Mga 13 years old, nag-a-addict. Ito pong mga mag-asawang purigay na to, sila ang mga drug lords sa Basilan. Kapatid nila yung mga judge sa amin. 3 beses ako pina-ambush ng pamilyang to. Pag pumunta kayo sa social media ko, makikita ninyo ilang beses ako humingi ng tulong kasi pinapa-ambush nila ako. Ang mga drug lord na to.
Rose Ferry, a former city mayor in the rest-directed southern province of Basilan, and whose daughter was among the graduates, was killed. Purigai's executive assistant and the university security guard were also killed. Her daughter was wounded and is in a stable condition in hospital. The alleged gunman fled the scene by forcing a driver out of their vehicle before abandoning it and continuing his getaway to a jeepney police death. He was eventually detained near a church. Purigay, whose family dominates politics in Lamitan City, served 3 terms as mayor and was prevented by the Constitution from seeking re-election in the May 9 polls. She was succeeded by her husband, who had held the position before her, a common occurrence in the Philippines where powerful clans hand positions from one family member to another to maintain their influence. Ateneo de Manila University canceled the graduation ceremony. The incident happened on the eve of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address, in which he is expected to present his plan for reviving the economy and tackling inflation. Marcos Jr. expressed shock at the incident and said law enforcement agencies would thoroughly and swiftly investigate these killings and bring all involved to justice. This as the president mourned with the bereaved families of Rosita Furigay, former mayor of Lamitan City in Basilan Province, Victor George Capistrano, the executive assistant of Furigay, and a certain Bandiola Hineven. Marcos said he is shocked and saddened by the shooting incident that happened at about 2:55 p.m. Our prayers go to the graduates, their families, the Ateneo community, and to the residents of Quezon City and Basilan, Marcos said. Furigay was shot while walking towards the lobby of one of the buildings of the school where the graduation of Ateneo law students was supposed to be held. She was declared dead in the hospital along with Capistrano. In a statement, Cruz Angeles, whose office supervises PTV, made it clear that the office of the press secretary will not take the incident sitting down if proven true. A certain Den Macaranas allegedly tweeted, "Nagbarilan na yata ang mga pinklawan at dilawan at Ateneo. It looks like the pinks and the yellows shot at each other," referencing today's shooting incident in the university. Pursuant to this, we call the attention of officials at PTV, where he is allegedly a desk editor, to investigate the matter, she said. Pink was the campaign color of former Vice President Maria Leonor Leni Robredo when she ran for president in the May 2022 elections, while yellow is associated with the late President Corazon Aquino. Both are known opposition leaders. We assure the public that if true, we will take the appropriate action, the palace official added.
In today's other news, we have powerful words from the World Health Organization amid rising cases of monkeypox. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said a committee of experts who met on Thursday was unable to reach a consensus, so it fell on him to decide whether to trigger the highest alert possible. This is what he had to say. Take a look.
So in short, we have an outbreak that has spread around the world rapidly through new modes of transmission about which we understand too little and which meets the criteria in the international health regulations. For all of these reasons, I have decided that the global monkeypox outbreak represents a public health emergency of international concern. The outbreak has continued to grow, and there are now more than 16,000 reported cases from 75 countries and territories and 5 deaths. WHO's assessment is that the risk of monkeypox is moderate globally and in all regions, except in the European region, where we assess the risk is high. Although I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern, for the moment, this is an outbreak that's concentrated among men who have sex with men, especially those with multiple sexual partners. That means that this is an outbreak that can be stopped with the right strategies in the right groups.
So I think this is a call to action. This is not the first. The DG brought the committee together. It was an alert to the world. The WHO has been highly active on this since day one. This is not the beginning of the response. This is an intensification of his calls to the world that we must act now and we must act together, as we have been acting up to now. But like every effort in human human science and human health, there are times when you must accelerate that effort, and I think today's call is for an acceleration of our collective efforts to bring.
A viral infection resembling smallpox and first detected in humans in 1970, monkeypox is less dangerous and contagious than smallpox, which was eradicated in 1980. The first symptoms of monkeypox are fever, headaches, muscle pain, and back pain during the course of 5 days. Rashes subsequently appear on the face, palms of hands, and soles of the feet, followed by lesions, spots, and finally, scabs. 95% of cases have been transmitted through sexual activity, according to a study of 528 people in 16 countries published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the largest research to date. The Cambodian Health Ministry said a Nigerian man who went on the run after becoming Thailand's first monkeypox case was found in Phnom Penh on Saturday and taken to hospital. This comes the same day the World Health Organization officials in Geneva declared the monkeypox outbreak as a global health emergency on Saturday. A Thai health official said a 27-year-old tourist who had overstayed his visa in Thailand was diagnosed with monkeypox in the resort city of Phuket on Monday. During his stay in Phuket, the man had visited 2 entertainment venues and 142 people are now being screened for the virus, according to a health official, adding that the man also had unprotected sex with a woman. After learning of his diagnosis, he fled his Phuket accommodation, turned off his phone, and failed to respond to police or health workers' messages. His getaway sparked a manhunt across Thailand, and authorities said his phone signal was detected in a northeastern province bordering Cambodia. After searching several locations Saturday, Cambodian police found the runaway at a Phnom Penh guest house, and he has since been sent to the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital for medical treatment. In order to prevent the infection of monkeypox virus, the Ministry of Health appeals to all people who have direct contact with a Nigerian patient to isolate themselves and seek health checks, according to the Cambodian ministry in a statement. Monkeypox is not as contagious as the coronavirus, according to the WHO, but since a surge of infections were reported in early May outside West and Central African countries, where the disease has been endemic, it has affected more than 16,800 people in 74 countries, according to a tally published this week by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The European Union's drug watchdog on Friday recommended for approval the use of Imvanex, a smallpox vaccine, to treat monkeypox. Imvanex, developed by Danish drug maker Bavarian Nordic, has been approved in the EU since 2013 for the prevention of smallpox. It was also considered a potential vaccine for monkeypox because of the similarity between the monkeypox virus and the smallpox virus. Let's listen in.
The vaccine itself is is actually the smallpox vaccine, the MVA-BN technology, which is our smallpox vaccine that has been approved for a long time, also got this indication back in 2019 for monkeypox. We have an annual capacity in our manufacturing site at approximately 30 million doses annually. So we can produce quite a lot of doses. We can, with the current demand, we can easily supply the global market. So it's a vaccine which is in stockpiles many places, in many countries, and it's a vaccine that can be used both if you are exposed. So if you are vaccinated a few days after you are exposed, you can also be protected. But you can also, of course, use the vaccine as a prophylactic vaccine, meaning before you are exposed to the disease, before you are exposed to monkeypox.
Imvanex, developed by Danish drug maker Bavarian Nordic, has been approved in the EU since 2013 for the prevention of smallpox. It was also considered a potential vaccine for monkeypox because of the similarity between the monkeypox virus and the smallpox virus. Monkeypox is less dangerous and contagious than smallpox, which was eradicated in 1980. The first symptoms of monkeypox are fever, headaches, muscle pain, and back pain during the course of 5 days. Rashes subsequently appear on the face, the palms of hands and soles of feet, followed by lesions, spots, and finally scabs. Refusing to be caught flat-footed, the Department of Health, or DOH, and its partners have been preparing for the monkeypox virus ever since an uptick in cases was reported in other countries in May 2022. DOH OIC Dr. Maria Rosario Singh Vergere has assured the public that there is no reported case in the Philippines yet, and they are doing everything to prevent it from entering the country. That's the scenario.
Research Institute for Tropical Medicine and the UP Philippine Genome Center is already capable of detecting the monkeypox. We had been receiving samples from the start. Noon yung mataas yung awareness, mataas ang nagbibigay ng samples, at sa lahat naman po ng tinest natin, negatibo lahat sa monkeypox.
This, as World Health Organization, or WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has declared monkeypox to be a public health emergency of international concern. Following the declaration, WHO also issued temporary recommendations to guide the response of countries around the world that might be affected by the virus. For countries like the Philippines with no history of monkeypox in humans, some of the guidelines include the following: activate multi-sectoral coordination mechanisms for readiness and response to stop human-to-human transmission, avoid stigmatization and discrimination against any individual or population group that may be affected to help prevent further undetected transmission. The World Health Body also recommends intensified epidemiology and disease surveillance, as well as raising awareness and training of health workers about virus transmission, related prevention and protective measures, and symptoms and signs among communities that are currently affected, as well as among other population groups that may be at risk, among others.
Pampanga's 2nd District Representative Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo will not be able to attend President Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address, or SONA, today after she tested positive for COVID. Erwin Krishna Santos, Arroyo's chief of staff confirmed in a statement on Sunday that the former president was diagnosed positive in an antigen test on July 15 and has underwent self-quarantine. However, the reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction test on Friday showed Arroyo was still positive for COVID-19. Santos said Arroyo has been religiously taking the prescribed medicines and supplements required of a COVID patient. The Philippine National Police has recalibrated its security deployment following the decision of the Quezon City government to allow both progressive groups and supporters of President Marcos Jr. to hold gathering during this State of the Nation address. Let's listen in.
Pinaghahandaan din po namin yung magiging security, mapaantay man yan o mapapro. Nang sa ganun, hindi naman po tayo malusutan or may untowards na incident na mangyari, lalong-lalo na persona ng ating presidente. Mga previously na naging approach natin when it comes to State of the Nation, mapabagong administrasyon. So with the template and lahat ng mga best practices,
as announced by QC Department of Public Order and Safety Head Retired General Elmer San Diego, militant groups Bagong Alyansang Makabayan or Bayan and San Lakas will be allowed to march from Quezon City Circle to Tandang Sora. While the standing order to police personnel is to practice maximum tolerance, the now asked the protesters in return not to commit unruly acts so authorities won't use the necessary force as authorized by law. The Quezon City local government suspended classes on all levels in both public and private schools in their jurisdiction today. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte said this is to spare the students from the expected traffic jams caused by road closures in relation to the SONA event.
The Philippine Army on Monday said it has deployed a sizable contingent to help the police force in securing President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address at the Batasang Pambansa in Quezon City. In a statement, Philippine Army spokesperson Colonel Cerces Trinidad said they have deployed a civil disturbance management platoon, 2 urban search and rescue teams, an ambulance medic team, and a communications van. He added that these are under the operational control of the Armed Forces of the Philippines Joint Task Force National Capital Region National Security Contingent. He also added that the Philippine Army, as part of the AFP, is closely coordinating with the Philippine National Police and the Bureau of Fire Protection to secure the SONA venue from any threats and dangers and maintain peace and order. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s first State of the Nation address is expected to last for 1 hour and 15 minutes, sans ad-libs, a palace official said Monday. The president is scheduled to deliver his first SONA at around 4 p.m. at the Batasang Pambansa complex in Quezon City. Executive Secretary Victor Rodriguez told reporters on Friday that Marcos was writing the speech himself. The 64-year-old chief executive is expected to outline his plans for the economy, as well as for the government's COVID-19 response. There is also expected to be a focus on food security and the digitalization of the government. Article 7, Section 23 of the 1987 Constitution requires the president to address the Congress at the opening of its regular session. The Philippine president delivers the SONA every year, usually held every last Monday of July, to report the state of the country, unveil the administration's agenda for the coming year, and ask Congress to pass priority legislative measures. The SONA of Marcos' late father and namesake so far remains the longest address in terms of word count, with his 1969 speech reaching 29,335 words.
In today's other news, as the war in Ukraine pushes up wheat prices and a weaker peso raises the cost of imported edible oil, many Philippine bakers are now shrinking the size of the popular breakfast roll, the pandesal, to cope with higher inflation. Take a look.
5 grams. Oo, yun. Para makakope kami doon sa nangyayari ngayong price increase ng raw materials. From 35 grams yung pandesal namin. Parang ginawa namin siya ngayong, pinaliit namin siya ng konti para lang to survive. Alam mo yun, yung daily needs namin. Kasi kaya hindi rin namin siya mataasan kasi sa community bakery nga, syempre, hindi naman din magkakalayo yung aming mga bakery. So most probably, kinakatakot namin, baka pag nagtaas kami is hindi mabili yung tinapay namin. 'Di ba? Alam naman natin kasi na mga Pilipino, lalo na ngayon, pandemic time pa din tayo. So, ang mga Pinoy hangga't makakatipid, 'di ba? Pero still, very important talaga yung yung pandesal sa buhay ng mga Pilipino kasi ito yung tinatawag nilang poor man's bread. 'Di ba? So, very affordable naman talaga kasi siya. Siyempre, pag kumain ka ng tinapay, ng pandesal, especially the pandesal, uminom ka ng kape, that's it. Breakfast mo na yun. So, yun.
Nagpapalaman ako pagka may pera. Pero pagka wala akong pera, yun, hindi na ako nagpapalaman.
The slightly sweet and pillowy soft pandesal, which Filipinos often dunk in coffee or stuff with cheese, used to weigh 35 grams at this bakery, a bread maker in suburban Manila, the Matimias Bakery. But as the cost of local and imported ingredients soared in recent months, the co-owner, Jam Molian, gradually reduced the size of the pandesal, or the poor man's bread, because it is cheap to around 25 grams to avoid raising the 2 pesos and 50 centavo price. The bakery survives day to day and does not make enough money to buy ingredients in bulk, leaving it vulnerable to changing prices in domestic and international markets. Inflation in the Philippines hit 6.1% in June, the highest level in nearly 4 years, as steep fuel price hikes pushed up food and transport costs. Lawmaker and economist Joey Salceda said bread would be hardest hit by shrinkflation, where the size of a product gets smaller but the price stays the same. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Sa Hulyo 25, pag-uulat sa bayan. Sa unang pagkakataon, si Pangulong Ferdinand Bongbong Romualdez Marcos Jr. Alamin ang mga ilalahad na polisiya, isusulong na panukala at plano ng Marcos administration sa loob ng 6 na taon. First State of the Nation Address. Mapapanood sa Net25 at mapapakinggan sa Radyo Agila DZEC 1062 kHz. Abangan din ang aming online updates sa Net25 Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at net25.com. First State of the Nation Address of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on Net25 coverage.
Ito ang Net25 Primetime News. Matatag, matapang, matapat, kasama sina Alex Santos, Emma Tiglao at Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 ng gabi sa Net25.
Welcome back, and we're still coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok, Thailand with Cristel Mapa. And now to Myanmar, where the junta has executed 4 prisoners, including a former lawmaker from Aung San Suu Kyi's party and a prominent activist, according to state media today. This is the country's first use of capital punishment in decades. Now, the 4 were executed for leading brutal and inhumane terror acts, according to the Global New Light of Myanmar newspaper. The paper said the executions were carried out under the prison's procedure without saying when or how the men were killed. Pyo Zea Tau, a former lawmaker from Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, who was arrested in November, was sentenced to death in January for offenses under anti-terrorism laws. He had been accused of orchestrating several attacks on regime forces, including a gun attack on a commuter train in Yangon in August that killed 5 policemen. A hip-hop pioneer whose subversive rhymes irked the previous junta. He was jailed in 2008 for membership in an illegal organization and possession of foreign currency. He was elected to parliament representing Aung San Suu Kyi's NLD in the 2015 elections, which ushered in a transition to civilian rule. Democracy activist Kyaw Min-yu, meanwhile, better known as Jimmy, received the same sentence from the military tribunal. 2 other men were sentenced to death for killing a woman they alleged was an informer for the junta in Yangon.
UN rights experts said that if the executions went ahead for the first time in Myanmar since 1988, it could mark the start of a spate of hangings. They also said it will cause a huge wave of anger in Myanmar. Let's watch this.
This is all about intimidation. This is about showing to the people of Myanmar that the junta is prepared to use a steel fist to crack down. And I think it will unfortunately backfire. I think it will create a situation where there is more anger and more resistance rather than less. What this really shows, I think, is a certain degree of desperation by the junta, that they want to try to use this to pressure people to stop protesting, to pressure people to stop attacking them. I don't think it's going to work, but it will certainly deepen the anger and the resistance of the people against the Myanmar junta, and I think create greater enmity and anger towards the police and the military by ordinary Burmese.
At least 9 bodies have been found after a ferry sank off the coast of an Indonesian island due to bad weather. The KM Cahaya Arafa capsized in waters off Indonesia's Ternate Island on Monday evening, prompting a search and rescue operation for 13 missing people. Rescuers found 4 bodies on Wednesday evening and 5 bodies on the 4th day of the search. The Ternate Search and Rescue Agency said this in a statement. 4 people remain missing. The boat was carrying 77 passengers and crew on board as it traveled to nearby Halmahera Island. 64 people were evacuated to a nearby village after the sinking. Local villagers had sailed out in their long boats to help authorities in a vessel with the search operation. Marine accidents are common in Indonesia, a Southeast Asian archipelago of around 17,000 islands where people rely on ferries and small boats to travel around despite poor safety standards.
In other news, South America's Mercosur has concluded a free trade agreement with Singapore, announces Foreign Minister Julio Ariola of Paraguay, one of the members of the trade bloc alongside Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay. The fresh deal could boost the bloc's exports by some $500 million per year. That's the Senate.
Economic links between Singapore and Mercosur have grown over the years, and the FTA can further catalyze this. Today, Singapore's trade with Mercosur accounts for nearly half of our total trade with Latin America. We want to see trade, investment, and economic initiatives grow even more between Singapore and the region. Our joint effort on the FTA demonstrate our commitment to deepen economic ties with each other. It is important that we encourage and support businesses to do likewise. This would help diversify our respective markets so they become more resilient.
Con la conclusión de las negociaciones del Acuerdo de Libre Comercio con Singapur y los avances alcanzados con la Unión Europea, el Paraguay considera que ha quedado claramente demostrada la proyección internacional de nuestro bloque. Con la presencia de todos los Estados partes tenemos mayor capacidad y fuerza negociadora y por lo tanto debemos seguir por este camino.
The trade deal between Mercosur and Singapore is the first of such kind between the South American bloc and its partners in Asia. The agreement's final text will now undergo legal review before being signed as dictated by the standard procedure. Then to enter into force, it will need legislative approval in all countries. Singapore's Minister of Commerce Gan Kim Yong participated directly in the final talks. Argentina accepted the proposed terms despite being amid an inflationary spiral and a currency crisis, which led the peso's value to fall in the parallel market. The Brazilian government hopes that Singapore can establish itself as a gateway for the entry of Brazilian and Mercosur exports into Southeast Asia and the Pacific, 2 of the world's most economically active areas. According to the ASEAN briefing, the proposed FTA between Mercosur and Singapore will favor bilateral trade and investments and expand Mercosur presence in ASEAN, while at the same time will stimulate more negotiations and reduce obstacles for Mercosur and Singaporean companies to compete in each other's respective markets.
In today's other news, major economies such as India, Brazil, and Russia are facing cascading crises driven by climate change, such as food insecurity, energy shortages, and civil unrest, according to industry analysis, warning this on Thursday. While developing nations of Africa and Southeast Asia are predicted to be worst hit by higher temperatures, extreme weather, and sea level rise, some middle-income nations lack the infrastructure and legislative freedom to keep pace with the changing climate. The analysis looked at countries' performances across 32 structural issues, including weather-related events, political stability, economic power, resource security, poverty, and human rights, to assess each nation's capacity to manage the crisis. It then divided countries into three categories, namely insulated, precarious, and vulnerable. Developing nations were mainly deemed to be in the vulnerable category for lacking these safeguards. Several middle-income countries, however, including India, Indonesia, and South Africa, also fell into this grouping.
The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, said no Filipino casualty has so far been reported amid the blistering heat wave sweeping across Europe. DFA Deputy Assistant Secretary Gonar Musor noted that Philippine embassies and consulates in Europe continue to remind the local Filipino community to take the necessary precautions against the negative effects caused by the heat wave. Several parts of Europe have been suffering from sweltering heat waves and wildfires this month, causing air pollution in the continent to spike. In an advisory on July 19, scientists of the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service predicted very high levels of surface ozone pollution across a large region of Europe as temperatures soared. The World Health Organization noted that degraded air quality poses a negative impact, particularly on vulnerable people.
And with temperatures expected to remain above normal until the middle of next week, the World Meteorological Organization is warning that heat waves are and will occur more and more frequently. Let's listen in.
Today, we have actually already broken the all-time high in UK. There was 39.1 degrees at 11 o'clock, and we expect that the temperatures may go above 40 degrees today. We are expecting to see also major impacts on agriculture. During the previous heat waves in Europe, we lost big parts of harvest, and under the current situation where we are already having this global food crisis because of war in Ukraine, this heat wave is going to have further negative impact on agricultural activities. These kind of heat waves are becoming more and more frequent in the coming decades. The negative trend in climate will continue at least until 2060s, independent of our success in climate mitigation. We have already lost the game concerning melting of glaciers, so we expect that this melting of glaciers will continue for the coming hundreds of years or even coming thousands of years anyhow, and also sea level rise will continue for the same period. I'm happy to wear this kind of ties at these kind of events, which is demonstrating what we have seen happening in the climate for the past 150 years. So you can see that in the past we had much more blue color, and more recently we have seen more red color, which indicates that the heat waves have become more frequent.
Climate change is affecting our health in many, many ways, not only by the heat waves, which are a direct consequence in the number of diseases and conditions and death that is causing, but as well because it will be touching the pillars of our health, the access to food. We will not have a good agricultural production, access to water. There will be water scarcity for sure. 99% of the global population is breathing air that is not respecting the proposed standards by WHO, the air quality guidelines. The best solution to this will be, again, being very ambitious on tackling the causes of this global warming. We have been alerting for a long time that climate change is affecting very much human health, and therefore taking measures to reach the zero carbon and accelerating the transition to clean, renewable sources of energy.
And it's official, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri is the next Senate President. As Majority Leader, Zubiri has long been known as the consensus builder who was well-versed in the ins and outs of the Senate. A number of names besides Zubiri's were brought up when the initial jockeying for the position began, and that includes Cynthia Villar, Sherwin Gatchalian, Cheese Escudero, and Loren Legarda. But by late May, none of the contenders had secured the required 13 votes out of 24 to win the leadership of the upper chamber. Talk of term sharing began eventually until Villar threw in the towel completely, saying she'd rather live a simple life. After openly gunning for the position since 2019, Zubiri openly campaigned for Marcos, now the sitting chief executive in this year's elections, and got sacked from former VP Lenny Robredo's senatorial slate for doing so. Meanwhile, COVID cases in the country starting to rise again. Here's Octa Research's group, Dr. Guido David, to explain.
Myanmar, patuloy na tumataas yung bilang ng kaso ng COVID, pati sa Metro Manila. Yung weekly growth rate, 3 weeks ago, bumaba na siya sa or rather 2 weeks ago, bumaba na siya to mga 23%. So kala namin nun, baka malapit na mag-peak, pero nag-maintain siya at around 25%. So yung 1 week growth rate over the past week, 25% pa rin. Ang ibig sabihin nito ay patuloy pa rin tumataas yung bilang ng kaso, although hindi ganun kabilis yung pagtaas ng kaso sa NCR, pero tumataas pa rin yung positivity rate. Now at 14.1% in the NCR, yung reproduction number sa NCR ay 1.38, ganun din siya nung nakaraan na linggo. So hindi na bumababa pa yung reproduction number. Ano yung ibig sabihin nito? Well, may mga possibilities na baka yung pagka-complacency natin ay naka-contribute sa pag-prolong ng wave na ito. Kasi in-expect natin mga 2 months lang itong wave na ito kumpara sa tulad ng nangyari sa South Africa. Pero ngayon, magto 2 months, 2 months hanggang pagbaba. Pero ngayon, magto 2 months na wala pa tayo sa peak. So, isang possibility pa ay yung maraming subvariants na kumakalat, yung Omicron BA5, yung BA4, yung BA 2.12.1, at hindi natin masabi kung nakapasok na yung BA 2.75, yung Centaurus variant or subvariant. Hindi pa natin na-detect yan, pero it's possible na baka may umiikot na dito. Well, sa ngayon, hindi pa clear kung kailan natin maabot yung peak. It could happen, it could happen anytime. It could happen next week, or it could happen baka sa August pa. Kasi yun nga, patuloy na tumataas yung bilang ng kaso. So, I think para matulungan natin na hindi masyadong kumalat yung kaso, kailangan yung mga kababayan natin, sumunod tayo sa mga health protocols, magpapakuna tayo, magpa-boosters tayo para mapigilan din natin yung pagdami ng cases kasi dumadami yung mga, presumably yung mga breakthrough cases, yung mga reinfections. Kaya kailangan talaga yung pagtutulungan natin.
And finally, in our news, ASEAN launched its first youth dialogue as part of the designation of the 2022 as the Year of ASEAN Youth. The first ASEAN Youth Dialogue will took place July 25. This will be until the 26th in Siem Reap, Cambodia, with 68 youth delegates participating from across the ASEAN region and the Republic of Korea. The dialogue's theme focuses on youth in the era of Fourth Industrial Revolution, opportunities and challenges in the post-pandemic recovery. Take a look.
We are a leadership and entrepreneurship education charity, making quality character education accessible and available to all youth, regardless of their background or availability or accessibility. Joining me at this panel are some illustrious panelists, youth panelists, people who are young and making amazing change and doing some amazing things with the initiatives and organizations that they've been part of. Obviously, yes, most of us are scattered across ASEAN, and we have our friends from Republic of Korea as well. So this is a good snapshot of where we are.
So yeah, currently I'm building my own organization.
Now, the ASEAN Secretariat and the Cambodian Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport jointly organized this dialogue with support from the ASEAN-Korean Cooperation Fund under the 9th ASEAN-Korea Frontiers Forum. The areas to be addressed in the dialogue align with priorities under Cambodia's ASEAN chairmanship this year and the theme ASEAN-ACT Addressing Challenges Together. And that is the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you very much, Cristel Mapa from our Bangkok, Thailand Bureau for keeping me company today here on ASEAN in Focus.
Thanks, Alma. And again, I am Cristel Mapa of ABC Thailand Bureau. We live in extraordinary times.
Extraordinary times.
Sa Hulyo 25, mag-uulat sa bayan. Sa unang pagkakataon, si Pangulong Ferdinand Bongbong Romualdez Marcos Jr. Alamin ang mga ilalahad na polisiya, isusulong na panukala at plano ng Marcos administration sa loob ng 6 na taon. First State of the Nation Address. Mapapanood sa Net25 at mapapakinggan sa Radyo Agila DZEC 1062 kHz. Abangan din ng aming online updates sa Net25 Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at net25.com. First State of the Nation Address of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on Net25 coverage.
Hindi na makakatiis. Excuse me. Susubukan makilatis. Pwede ba tayo mag-usap kahit sandali lang? Magpapain ng pagkain. Tikman mo. Aantayin kung kakain. Hindi kayang kainin ni Yuwol yan.
Masarap talaga ang gejang. Ano ba sikreto mo?
Halos lahat naman may tinatago. Kailangan lang natin hanapin kung ano-ano yung mga sikretong yon.
Hindi ko makilatis yung mga bagay na mahalaga.
Anong ibig mong sabihin? Ang talino mong tao pero kapag si Kim Yuwol nang nasangkot bumabagsak ang IQ mo?
Place in the sun.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net25.
Sa akin, ha?
Nasa labas man o nasa loob ng kulungan,
lumayo ka na sa aming lahat.
Mananaig pa rin ang gumawa ng kasamaan.
Oh, sige. Aalis ako.
Maghahanap siya ng paraan para makalaya ka na agad dyan sa kulungan.
Kumanda si Elsa.